What's up, everybody? This is EvanForGrips.com, continuing with Project Get Me Stackin. I'm pretty happy it's Monday, and I got a great question to start off the week for you guys. I think it's going to help you guys just like smash for the max on your wins, and I think it's going to help you save on your losses, minimize the amount you lose, which is always one of the goals when we're playing. We want to maximize our gains and minimize our losses. Let's get right into it. First off, huge fan. I watch all your videos. I'm on your Facebook and I'm a subscriber too. Thank you. My name is Bobby Winger and I've been playing for 10 years or so. I've had ups and downs. Bankroll management has been my weakness. Not too uncommon of a weakness. You're not alone, Bobby. I saw your video about being in the zone and it definitely helped me a lot. My question about Get Stackin'. I need to know when you recommend getting off a cash game table, like how many buy-ins being up. Right thinking, wrong reasoning. I assume this is about live play, but the answer that I'm going to give you guys is also going to be applicable to online play as well. So whatever camp you're from, we got your bases covered. I find it really easy to make money when you're up on the table, and I use my stack against other players, like having a chip lead in tournaments. This is a concept that does apply to live poker, not as much online, but it's the concept of momentum and fear. We'll cover that some more in another lesson. My problem is that sometimes I'm up even 10 buy-ins, and then I run into the one guy on the table that can bust me, and then it's like AA versus KK or some shit like that, and I lose my whole stack or most of it. Wow. Has that happened to you? I know what's happened to me. Been there, done that. I have a feeling you're going to say it depends on your bankroll, but I'm wondering maybe a common rule of thumb or what you do if you don't have a time set. And Bobby, it's a great question, and it's something that for my entire poker career I've had to think about, knowing when to quit. It's the hardest thing to answer. There's always a reason to stay. There's usually reasons to quit too, but it's so much easier to just convince yourself to stay. It's so much easier to find the one reason that's telling you to stay rather than like the 5 reasons that are telling you it's time to leave. So, let's get a little more specific on this. Let's go ahead and break this down so you guys can have a clearer idea of how to approach this question. So in this video, I'm going to give you my list of considerations when deciding whether or not to keep playing. But ultimately, there isn't a strict yes or no answer to the question of should I quit or keep playing. If you've watched my video about getting in the zone, you'll understand what I mean. In general, when you're playing your best poker or close to it, you'll want to keep playing pretty much regardless of other minor factors. Once, however, you've clearly left the zone and don't see yourself getting back into it, it's probably time to rack up, cash out, and wait for the next session. Only you can know when this is the case. Checklists can be helpful for telling you what your mind already knows, but you probably don't want to accept. So let's make your decisions about quitting time a little more clear-cut. Here are the 3 main things I ask myself when deciding whether or not to keep playing. Who is in the lineup? Am I in a good game? You obviously want to be playing in good games, and leaving an amazing lineup is one of the biggest mistakes a poker player can make. Super juicy games full of fish, whales, and weak type players where you can just run the show all night don't come around every day. So it's important to take advantage of them when they do, or somehow become the kind of player who gets those games all the time. When looking around the table, ask yourself where you rank relative to the others. Go ahead. Rank them 1 to 6 or 1 to 10, depending on how big of a game you're playing. Like, it really shouldn't be that hard to categorize your opponents. And if you put yourself in the top 10 or 20%, you're probably in a good game. How you are playing, in many cases, sorry about that, guys. Very sorry about that. How you are playing in many cases trumps the lineup. Unless you're in a game that's out of this world, it's going to be very important that you're putting your best foot forward and bringing your best game to the table. Even if you're in a very good game, but you aren't feeling well and are playing your C or D quality game of poker, then it might be a good time to suck it up and step away. I know I've done this many times where I know I'm not playing good, but the lineups are just so good I want to keep playing, and things don't end up working out. Likewise, you need to ask yourself what level your opponents are playing at this particular session. If everyone else in the game is playing their A game, then your B game might not even be good enough to stick around. However, if everyone else is feeling the fatigue of a long session, or they've been drinking, or eating too much, or lost a big bet on the sporting event that's going on that night, they're tilted and you're still feeling sharp and energized, then your C game might be enough to get the job done. The main question to ask is, do you have an edge in the game you're playing? And if so, how big is it? As long as the answer is yes and more than 0, and it's an honest assessment, not sort of a wishful thinking one, then you want to go ahead and play until nobody else has anything left in them. If you're physically and mentally trained for it, aiming to be the last man standing is a pretty satisfying and profitable goal. This is also something that can definitely apply to multi-table tournaments where people don't have a choice of whether or not they can quit. Just think about it, and think about the value in just aiming to be the last man standing every session, if you can handle it. Now, let's talk about what most people think they should consider when choosing whether to quit or to keep playing. I'm not saying that these considerations are incorrect, as they definitely affect the key questions. However, the key questions should be the ones you're focusing on, and these secondary considerations just give you a little more information to get a clear answer to those key questions. If you've been playing a long session, there's a good chance your focus is going to wane. You'll be feeling the effects of fatigue, and your decision making won't be as sharp. Everyone has a point where they can no longer play great poker, a breaking point of sorts. And for some, it's 2 hours. For some, it's 12 hours. Likewise, when dealing with online, the amount of tables you're playing and your comfort level with the limits you're playing will have an effect on this. Mental stamina is something you can build up, and given that most players don't have as much as they should, working on it can be a big advantage. As Phil Ivey said in a famous interview, which you can find on the Griff's Facebook page, nobody plays as well when they're losing as they do when they're winning. So how you're doing in the game is definitely going to have an impact on your decision making. Hopefully you're someone who is only slightly affected from being stuck a buy-in or two, like hopefully it's like almost insignificant. But if you're someone who really starts playing bad as soon as you get stacked the first time, again, don't worry, you're not alone. Or you don't come out winning right away, leads you to start playing poorly, you may want to implement a stop loss. A stop loss simply means when you lose a certain amount, you quit playing no matter what. So for some people, that'll be 2 buy-ins. For some online players, it's going to be like 10 buy-ins. You just have to know your point and then set it and stick to it. Having a stop loss may mean you miss out on some good games and profitable opportunities, but it's better to be safe than sorry. If you're this type of player that can't handle losing a small amount, you probably play progressively worse with each buy-in you lose. Think about it. Have you ever been in that situation where you were playing great, you had a huge stack, then you lost a bit, started tilting a bit, then you're going into your pocket for the next buy-in and the third buy-in, and by the last one you're straddling and just going with any draw, playing like you could never imagine yourself playing. And there's no point in subjecting yourself to this when you're just going to feel terrible the next day. So if you're that type of person, having a stop loss can really help your peace of mind. And finally, the last point is one that I actually feel is reasonably important and is very applicable in live casino play. If you're doing very well in a game, you're going to find yourself sitting with 300, 500, maybe even like 1,000 big blinds. If there's another player on the table who is also very deep stacked with you, it's important that you understand how to adjust to deep stack play, because it's not the same as just like regular play or short stack play. If your real strength is 100 or 200 big blind play and you find yourself very deep with an opponent, this also can be online, then you might just want to ask for a table change. Hop off the game, switch to another table where you don't have to subject yourself to that situation. And like, don't worry about your ego and like the guy thinking he beat you because you walked away from the table. Like, who cares? It's about money, right? Just because you don't want to stay in a particular game doesn't mean that you have to stop playing for the night, which is especially true online. And the last question about adjusting, can you adjust to deep stack play? And the first four can be difficult to answer, since they come down to how honest you can be with yourself. And a lot of people like to fool themselves. They like to lie to themselves and tell themselves that they're better than they are, or they're playing better than they really are right now, or that they'll snap out of playing bad and immediately start playing better when things aren't going that great. And it's just usually not true. If you can be honest with yourself, then you can really focus on the three key questions rather than the secondary considerations to make your decisions about quitting, and therefore maximize your opportunities in profitable games. If, however, you aren't very good at being honest with yourself, and your friends and family can probably give you good insight as to whether or not this is the case, don't be afraid to ask, then you may want to stick with the secondary considerations, which are much more objective and therefore easy to be honest about. You know, you can't really lie about how long you've been playing or whether you're winning or losing when it's a number. So if you fit into the second category, then make a note when you're playing of when you notice yourself starting to make poor decisions. It's usually pretty obvious, like it's not going to be a huge, terrible decision, but it's usually pretty clear when you're doing something that you wouldn't have done at your best. Make a note of how long you've been playing for. Make a note of how much you are winning or losing. Make note of this for a few sessions, and after a week or so, you'll probably have a pretty good indicator as to what your ideal session time is and what your threshold point is for losing when the wheels start to fall off. Now that you have a time limit to follow and you have a stop loss that you can stick to, so you can be playing your best, you don't have to walk away from the table feeling like a sucker because you didn't know when to call it quits. That's my 2 cents on knowing when to quit. It's a tough one. It's a really tough one to wrap your head around with, but like everything else, it comes with practice. So in closing this question, since it's a really tough one to answer on your own, and you may want to get some like outside opinion on this one, like get to know yourself, get to know your game, and get to know your opponents. Try to identify their breaking points when things just snap and they start to play poorly, and try to be honest with yourself about yours. Really try to be honest, and like if you can identify the breaking point in them, it's going to be easier for you to identify the breaking point in yourself, because you're going to know what things to look for. So whatever it is now, your breaking point, it's something that can be improved. Like don't get down on yourself if it's like 15 minutes. I mean, it's probably not going to be 15 minutes, but you know what I mean. You can train yourself to play longer. You can train yourself to be less affected by a 3 buy-in swing, a 5 buy-in. Like even a 20 buy-in swing is something that you can train yourself to be adjusted to if you know you're playing well and not have it affect your play or your decisions at the table whatsoever. The key is knowing where you're at right now so that you can find a way to improve it. Many viewers of this video will be best off starting with the secondary considerations. So like, don't be upset if you're like, you know what, I can't really judge how I'm playing or how amazing the lineup is. I don't notice those intricacies. Stick with the secondary stuff. It's fine. And then build up to the key considerations. Like, just ease into it. I encourage you to strive to make the key considerations your focus when it comes to quitting time, but ease into it. Don't be in a rush. Knowing when to quit is like the hardest thing to do perfectly, because like even when you're close, when you're playing like close to your best, you may have to quit if everyone else is playing out of this world, or you can be playing your fucking A game and like still be in a great position. Like sometimes when you're playing your very best, the lineup of the game can change drastically. The two big fish can get stacked and they quit, and the seats get filled with pros, and suddenly it's a really tough game. And even though you're playing your fucking best, um, you might get forced into having to leave the game just because it's not a great game anymore. But just by watching this video, you've probably got a leg up on everyone in your local home game, which all the live pros watching this is probably who I'm talking to. And it's a big leg up at that. So if you made it through the whole video, feel good. You'll be far ahead of the competition. You'll be a big favorite. Okay, so please leave me your comments. Let me know what you thought of the video. Let me know your guys' thoughts on quitting time. Talk to each other. We're all here to help each other in this Grips poker training community. So don't hold back. Don't be shy. Go ahead, smash that comment board. And if you have any questions, please send them to me at, we go this side, evan@grips.com with the subject, Get Me Stackin. And finally, if you like these kind of videos and you find that they're helping you improve your poker game, please subscribe to my channel. There should be a subscribe button somewhere up there. I don't know where. And there's also a link below the video that you can click to subscribe to the channel. And that way, anytime I release another poker tips video or poker Q&A, you will be the first person to get the information. So I hope you found the video informative and insightful. This has been Evan for Grips.com. Peace.